The storm rolled across the countryside like a beast unleashed. Thunder cracked over the hills of Willow Creek as rain poured down in sheets, drowning the narrow dirt roads. A sleek black sedan sat half buried in the mud, its headlights flickering through the downpour. Inside, a teenage girl gripped the steering wheel, breathing hard. Her name was Juliet Rowan, daughter of one of the wealthiest men in the state. But at that moment, her last name meant nothing. Her world had narrowed to the cold rain, the darkness, and the throbbing ache in her crippled leg. Juliet had been born with a spinal condition that weakened her left leg. Despite therapy and surgeries, she still relied on a wheelchair for long distances and a brace when walking. That night, she had insisted on attending a charity event alone, a small act of rebellion against her father's endless rules. But when the rain started early, she'd panicked and tried to drive home before the storm hit. The car had slid into a ditch, and now, she was trapped. Her phone had no signal. Her driver had gone for help nearly 2 hours earlier and never returned. The road was deserted, lined by thick trees and farmland. The wind screamed through the branches. Juliet tried to open the door, but when she stepped out, her leg gave out. She fell hard into the mud, crying out as pain ripped through her side. Her wheelchair was folded in the back seat, useless to her now. She dragged herself a few inches before exhaustion forced her to stop. The cold rain soaked her hair and clothes until her skin burned. A few miles away, a 16-year-old boy named Micah Green sat on the steps of an old wooden porch, watching the storm sweep across the valley. His home, a leaning shack with a tin roof, shuddered in the wind. He'd been patching holes in the roof when the rain came, but it didn't matter anymore. He was used to leaks. His mother worked double shifts at the nursing home, and his little sister slept inside, wrapped in blankets. Micah saw the flash of headlights in the distance, then nothing. His gut told him something was wrong. Without hesitating, he grabbed his jacket, slipped on his muddy sneakers, and headed toward the light. The rain slapped against his face as he ran, his flashlight cutting through the fog. When he reached the curve of the road, he saw it, the luxury car stuck deep in the ditch. At first, he thought it was empty, until he spotted movement near the front tire. Someone was crawling through the mud, struggling to move. He jumped the fence and hurried toward her. "Hey! You need help?" he shouted over the rain. Juliet looked up, startled. Her face was pale, her hair dripping, her voice shaking. "Please," she whispered, "my leg. I can't walk." Micah knelt beside her, his heart pounding. "Don't worry, I got you." He slid one arm under her shoulders and another beneath her knees, trying to lift her gently. She winced, gasping in pain. "Sorry," he muttered, adjusting his grip. "I know it hurts. Just hang on." Her arms clung weakly around his neck. For a moment, their eyes met, her bright gray eyes wide with fear, his dark brown ones steady and calm. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe now." He carried her toward an old shed nearby, its roof half collapsed but still offering shelter. The door creaked open under his shoulder. Inside, the air smelled of wood and rain. He found a dusty tarp and laid it on the floor before setting her down gently. Juliet's voice trembled. Why are you helping me?" Micah shrugged, wiping mud from his face. "Because you need help. That's all." She watched him light an old lantern hanging from a nail. The glow revealed his soaked clothes, the holes in his sneakers, and the kindness etched into his tired face. He must have been no older than her, but there was something older in his eyes, something that came from hardship. He noticed her leg bent at an odd angle and frowned. "It's hurt bad." "I think so," she said, biting her lip. "I fell." He nodded slowly. "I can fix a splint. My granddad taught me when I was little." He found 2 broken wooden slats and tore his sleeve into strips, working carefully to brace her leg. Juliet flinched when he touched her ankle but said nothing. His hands were gentle, patient, careful not to make her feel weak. When he finished, he pulled off his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. "You'll get sick if you stay cold." She hesitated. "You'll freeze without it." Micah gave a faint grin. "I'm used to it." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the rain drum against the roof. Lightning flashed outside, followed by the low rumble of thunder. Juliet shivered, pulling his jacket closer. "You live around here?" she asked quietly. "Down the hill," he said. "That old house by the creek." "Oh." She hesitated. "I think I saw it once from the road." He chuckled softly. "Yeah, it's not much to look at." Juliet studied him, his calm, his quiet strength, and felt something shift inside her. Back home, people looked at her with pity or admiration, but never as a person. This boy didn't seem to care who she was. "Thank you," she said finally. Micah nodded. "You're welcome." The storm began to fade, but neither of them moved. The sound of rain had become almost peaceful now. In that broken-down shed, two lives that should have never crossed paths sat side by side, bound by chance and compassion. And neither knew that by the time the sun rose, this single night in the mud would change both of their lives forever. When morning came, the air was cool and quiet. A thin mist rose over the fields, and the storm had passed, leaving the world soaked but calm. Juliet blinked against the faint sunlight streaming through the cracks in the shed. Her clothes were dry now, thanks to the tarp Micah had tucked around her during the night. She turned her head and found him sitting near the door, dozing lightly, his arms folded and his head resting against the wall. For a moment, she simply watched him. The way his chest rose and fell slowly, the way his muddy sneakers were caked in dried dirt, he looked like he'd been carrying the world on his shoulders for years. She realized she didn't even know who this boy truly was, yet he had done what no one else had, stayed by her side when she had nothing to offer. A low rumble broke the silence, an engine in the distance. Micah stirred and stood, stretching. "Sounds like someone's coming," he said quietly. Juliet's heart leapt. "It must be my father's people." Minutes later, a black SUV came tearing down the muddy road, followed by another. Men in suits jumped out, shouting her name. Micah helped her sit up as two men rushed toward them. One of them, her father's security chief, nearly tripped when he saw her. "Miss Rowan." "Thank God you're alive," he said, kneeling beside her. Juliet looked past him toward the road. A third car pulled up, sleeker than the rest. The door swung open, and Martin Rowan, her father, stepped out. His expensive coat was soaked from the rain, but his expression was one of pure panic. When his eyes found Juliet, they softened in an instant. He ran to her, dropping to his knees. "Sweetheart," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You're safe." Juliet smiled faintly. "I'm fine, Dad. I just got stuck." He hugged her tightly before turning to the boy standing nearby. "Who are you?" Micah hesitated, unsure what to say. "Micah, sir. I found her last night. She was hurt, so I..." Martin straightened, cutting him off. "You were with her all night?" "Yes, sir. I stayed so she wouldn't be alone." There was no gratitude in the billionaire's eyes, only suspicion. He looked Micah up and down, muddy clothes, torn sleeves, the mark of poverty. "Did you touch her? Take anything?" Juliet's voice sharpened. "Dad! Stop!" Her father ignored her, still glaring. Micah stepped back slightly, shaking his head. "No, sir. I didn't take nothing. I just helped her." Juliet struggled to pull herself up, wincing. "He saved me, Dad. If it wasn't for him, I don't know what would have happened." Martin froze. For the first time, he seemed to truly see the boy in front of him, not as a threat, but as the person who had kept his daughter alive through the storm. His face softened, if only a little. I see. Then thank you, son. Micah gave a small nod. Just glad she's okay. Paramedics arrived soon after, lifting Juliet onto a stretcher. She looked for Micah, her heart sinking when she saw him standing alone near the shed, his jacket gone, hands in his pockets. Wait, she said, motioning for her father. He should come with us. Martin frowned. Juliet, he has his own family. Please, she insisted. He helped me. He deserves better than to just walk away. Micah shook his head. It's all right, miss. You don't owe me nothing. But she saw the sadness in his eyes, the look of someone used to being forgotten once the crisis passed. She reached out, taking his hand. Then maybe I can still thank you later, she said softly. He nodded once. Take care of yourself. As the paramedics loaded her into the ambulance, she watched through the back window as Micah turned and walked down the road, disappearing into the mist. 2 weeks later, the Rowan estate was bustling again, doctors, therapists, assistants coming and going as Juliet recovered. But her mind was elsewhere. Every time she looked out the window at the rainy fields, she thought of Micah. She had asked her father to find him, but he hadn't tried. He had given her a gentle smile and said, people like that don't want to be found. But Juliet didn't believe that. One afternoon, she convinced her nurse to drive her to Willow Creek. The town was quiet, small houses lined the main street, and she finally spotted the leaning shack by the creek, exactly as Micah had described. When she knocked on the door, a little girl answered. Hi, she said shyly. You look like the lady on the news. Juliet smiled. I'm looking for Micah. Is he here? The girl called out, and Micah appeared in the doorway, surprised and a little embarrassed. You came, he said quietly. I told you I would, Juliet said. My father wants to thank you properly. But I wanted to do it myself. She handed him a small envelope. This isn't from him, it's from me. Micah opened it and froze. Inside was a letter and a check, not huge, but enough to change his family's life. He looked up, eyes wide. I can't take this. You already gave me something, she said softly. You gave me my life back. He hesitated, then smiled, the first real smile she'd seen on him. Guess we both got a second chance, huh? Juliet nodded. Yeah. Maybe that's what the storm was for. They stood there a moment, quiet but connected. She turned to leave, but Micah called after her. Hey, Juliet. She looked back. He grinned. Next time it rains, maybe don't drive alone. She laughed for the first time in weeks, her heart lighter than it had been in years. As she rolled back toward the car, the gray sky above began to clear, letting the sunlight break through. The storm that had once nearly taken her life had instead brought her something she'd never had before, faith in a stranger, and the understanding that kindness, no matter where it comes from, can change everything.